Welcome to the Investing Podcast presented by Tusk Media. This is Outsider Trading, an audio and video deep dive into the people, places, and things that we find most interesting in the market.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Investing Podcast presented by Tusk Media. Real quick, do us a favor, no matter how you're watching or listening, show some love, hit subscribe on YouTube or iTunes, wherever you may be. Leave us a comment. You can leave comments on YouTube. If you're reading this on seekingalpha.com, you can leave a comment in there, leave feedback. If you have stock you want us to touch on, we can do that. If you're on iTunes, the most important thing you can do is leave a 5-star review. iTunes really weights those heavily, and we're trying to go up those rankings so that more people can find our content. So leave us a 5-star review. Super helpful. And lastly, follow us on social media. Twitter, we are at Tusk Media LLC. We'll put the link in the article maybe today on Seeking Alpha, and also on Facebook, facebook.com/Tusk Media LLC. How about that, Spiel? I feel like I nailed it.
Yeah, really important to remember that LLC too.
That LLC, because we are limiting our liability.
Indeed.
So Andrew Hall here, Ben Nye. We're going to do our normal drill, go through the markets, talk about a couple stocks, and then we've got some political chatter at the end of this with Matt Kresvach coming up. So we'll jump right in, looking at futures. Mostly flat, down just a tick. Dow futures down 8 basis points. S&P futures down 6. NASDAQ down 12. Gold is up just a smidge, up 2 basis points. And oil up about 0.5%. We talked at length about oil yesterday, but it's rallying again. It's over $51, continuing to kind of march forward. Another thing we've been keeping an eye on, a story we've touched on briefly, is the pound. We're actually seeing a little bit of change in direction, at least for the moment.
The pound has been pounded.
Yeah,
over the last number of months, and really it's been in a downtrend for a lot longer than that. I remember when it was $1.60 not too long ago. But the story today, a little bit of bounce here, was that Theresa May, the new PM, is not portfolio manager, Prime Minister.
She's the portfolio manager for the pound.
She says they're actually going to allow some more parliamentary debate prior to the triggering of Article 50. So the thinking there is that there's actually going to be a little more negotiation, perhaps a little more measurement as they go forward with this Brexit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we talked a lot about Brexit early in the summer, actually even before you were over here. But this is a great chance for you to go back, listen to some of our old stuff. We actually did a Brexit reaction pod. We've got some blog posts, all that kind of stuff. So check that out. Again, pound's showing a little bit of strength, not getting pounded right now. So good for the pound. Pound for pound, pretty good day for the pound.
Yeah.
You know. Let's talk about a couple stocks. We talked about earnings a little bit yesterday. Talked a little bit about what's going on there. But let's jump in first and foremost with Cisco and Ericsson. What are we talking about?
Yeah. So today the main story is out of Ericsson, and the read-through is to Cisco and Juniper and other network equipment manufacturers and suppliers. And the Ericsson is down 16% because they came out and said the profit's going to be really bad, way worse than anybody expected.
Which, if you go back to the conversation yesterday, when we talk about earnings and expectations,
right?
That's a big thing. You're not just looking at earnings; you're looking at expectations, and they're coming out and saying, "Hey, lower those expectations."
Exactly. And you see this a lot of the times when a new CEO comes in. So the old CEO left; he retired back in end of July. New guy comes in, first thing he does, he sees that the market is just awful. People are done investing in 4G equipment, especially in Europe. They're done in 4G, and there's this gap between 4G and 5G, where the carriers are not spending to invest in the next capital equipment for the next generation of networks. And so suppliers like Ericsson and like Nokia and Cisco's a little bit more diversified, but Ericsson and Nokia are right in the hot spot where all of a sudden their customers are saying, we're not going to make these big capital investments, and for that reason Ericsson is just getting slammed. Now, will the market rebound at some point? Probably, but the idea is just that the profit's going to be low for a long time. They're laying off workers, which is not a good sign. There's an immediate term rebound.
And so the read-through, you mentioned the read-through on Cisco. We are shareholders of Cisco. Our clients own Cisco. I guess the big takeaway is right now we're looking at that position. It's had a fantastic run. really dating back, I guess, really after that crash in January that everybody felt the burn
Right.
on. It's really kind of rallied since mid-February or so. So certainly a position maybe to be reviewing. If you're overweight, maybe consider some trims. Would you say?
Yeah, I would very much agree. I think that'll probably be a big topic of discussion later today.
Yeah.
The thesis for Cisco is obviously, huge cash flow, good dividend yield, and potential exposure to that next generation that we're talking about. If the gap to that next generation is so long, such that that cash flow stream starts to dry up, you could see that valuation contract a lot. As you could see analysts coming out saying dead money for the next 3 years.
Right.
I think that would probably be the headline you'd see if people get more bearish on it. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll definitely evaluate that.
Yeah, definitely something to look at. You don't want to overreact, but at the same time,
Yeah.
if you can look at that within an individual portfolio and say, hey, we've had a good little run here. Let's
Yeah.
take a little bit off the table. Not necessarily something you need to jump ship on, but
Right.
something we're going to definitely take a look at today. Something we've been talking about a little bit on this podcast for the last couple weeks is the explosive Samsung devices. They came out and basically cut their forecast and their preliminary figures by quite a bit. Actually cut third quarter profit by a third. And what's crazy about this story is I really think you're going to have a much larger spill into the fourth quarter for this. So Samsung, shaky ground to say the least.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Samsung, especially because they came out last week saying
Yeah.
everything, it's just everyone's crying wolf. It's not as bad as people think. Then they come out and say, actually, we were wrong last week. It's a lot worse than people think.
Yeah.
And talk about expectations management. This is case A in how not to manage expectations.
Yeah, if you're reiterating, or altering, I guess not reiterating, but altering expectations 2 weeks in a row,
Right.
Someone was either misinformed or tried to spin the wrong way.
Right.
That's not a great thing. And then I wonder, another position that we own quite a bit of is Apple. We own a lot of Apple for clients. We've watched Apple run up. We've been happy to see it run up. But it's up to 116, 117 bucks, something like that. Nice 6, 7, 8 day run. How much of that do you think we can attribute to weakness maybe from competitors like Samsung? And how much of it is isolated purely to Apple? And is there an opportunity there?
Yeah,
Lots of
well,
questions.
it's been a very fortuitous few weeks for Apple.
Yeah.
So if you cast your minds back to last year everyone was getting concerned about China and the weakness in China. So you're lapping that, which should help in general. And then also, all of a sudden, your biggest competitor, people aren't allowed to take their phones anywhere because they just start blowing up. So when you actually have those real issues when in purchasing a product or owning a product that you actually really diminishes the utility of that product, all of a sudden, people who were with Samsung thinking, I'm just gonna go with Apple. I'm not gonna deal with this hassle anymore.
Yeah, so you've got kind of that bad news for Samsung turning into good news for Apple, and I didn't discuss this with you, but spin zone for Samsung, potentially good marketing ploy right here. Samsung official phone of terrorism. Seems like you could maybe get away with a few things on a plane if you have a Samsung device. So just saying, if you're out there listening. Last thing we got kind of in the whole phone space is Sprint. They're mortgaging off 10%, I think is what we saw, of their wireless airspace, trying to raise some capital, $3.5 billion. Good strategy, bad strategy, any thoughts?
I don't know, it's interesting that they're doing that. It seems like they should want to maintain a lot of that in-house. It's interesting that they're going to auction on that. I guess they're seeing in the market that people are paying enough for that.
Yeah.
A bit of a surprising story to me.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like maybe they're strapped for cash a little
Yeah,
bit.
it definitely seems unorthodox at minimum. Whether it's, I guess maybe it's certainly too soon to say whether it's an effective strategy,
Right.
whether they're taking advantage of a miscalculation in the market or what. But I guess we'll kind of keep an eye on that over time. Transitioning now over to some acquisition stories. We've got Stanley Black & Decker acquiring Newell Tools for what, $2 billion?
Yeah, 1.95 or something.
Good acquisition. I mean, it kind of makes sense, at surface level to kind of roll something in under your umbrella that certainly seems comparable product line-wise.
Yeah, well, a lot of these big kind of mature companies like Stanley, Black & Decker are not being able to see much organic growth themselves. I think they did when the market was rebounding and home sales were accelerating a little bit, but in order to continue to achieve that revenue growth, you're going to have to make some acquisitions, and you're seeing this big theme of consolidation. A lot of those more mature industries is kind of the bigger boys want to consolidate more of that revenue and more of that market share under their umbrella, and that way they have more pricing power and more scale. So yeah, it kind of makes sense from a market overview.
So, kind of along those lines, speaking of consolidation in mature industries, Brooklyn Brewery getting acquired by, is it Kirin?
Kirin Holdings.
Kirin Holdings. Kind of an interesting theme. I like beer, you like beer, everybody likes beer. It's an interesting perspective on this because, you and I were talking about this in our very formal pre-production meeting. And, you pointed out that, hey, these people are coming in, these major breweries are coming in, or these holdings companies, as it may be, more so in this case, but they're coming in and they're paying really a nice premium for these craft breweries, and they're basically trying to gobble up as much as they can, paying a steep premium. But then on the other hand, a lot of the intrigue and the obsession with craft brewery is the fact that they're so small, they're so independent. That's a real, stake of claim for hipsters like Intern Barrett and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting because you have this huge premium paid for these beer companies that are smaller, and then immediately it seems like the customer base kind of discounts.
Yes.
If you're a major brewing company, how are you treating these microbreweries that are popping up almost everywhere?
I mean, I think you have to look at it as a fact of life. I mean, you've seen it when we were talking about this before, we think the barriers to entry in craft brewing are even less than like a fashion brand or something like that. So to the extent that you're acquiring all these, I mean, it's just, there's going to be more that pop up. So it's kind of trying to it's almost playing a game of whack-a-mole, and there are way too many moles to whack.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that's the perfect concept to think of is the barriers to entry. And if you talk to people that have started breweries, and I've talked to a handful of them that work at Red Heart Brewery, for instance, down the road here in Marietta. I mean, they started in a guy's garage, and he was just making beer for himself, and then he was just making beer for friends and family, and then he just had too much demand, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, well, I'm selling this beer out of my garage. I should get space. So there's not a lot there. And then the other side is there's not a real high cost of customer acquisition, I wouldn't think, simply because you have people that are seeking these things out. I mean, I can go right now and find a great brewery to go take a brewery tour of, pay $10 and get 5 samples. And if I like it, I'm probably going to go wherever I can go to buy that beer. And you have like such a passionate audience because it is so in season, so to speak, right now.
And it's not like wine. So wine you need you need a vineyard, you need time, you need but beer, it's not that at all. So, but there is an investment implication here. So if you're not going to buy the craft brewing company, if you're not going to buy the actual brewery itself, the actual larger beer company itself, what company stands to benefit from this? And that's the supplier of all these craft brewing. I mean, if you're supplying all these craft breweries with the instrumentation, the equipment,
whoever's making the big vats.
And if you have a service model, then I mean you're looking good. So hot take right there.
Yeah, there we go. And then you also wonder, it also seems like other people that could take a hit would actually be distributors. And I don't know a whole lot about that business, but it seems like you're going to really benefit of scale, but you're also going to hold a lot of pricing power over smaller breweries. And as they get bought off, if Garrett's selling 6 bottles and you're selling 6 million, I'm going to charge Garrett a lot more per bottle than you, and I can kind of take advantage of Garrett because he just needs somebody to take those 6 bottles out. So it seems like the distributors probably are a little bit against this consolidation, I would think, just because they're starting to see some of that scale roll off there. The last thing we've got is Fed minutes getting released from the September meeting. We'll get to read through those. The most exciting day of the month for me, getting to read Fed minutes. I think people are really excited. Right now, as we start to think about rate hikes and we look at December, it looks like about 60% expectation is the latest number I was looking at for a rate hike. What are you looking for? Let me start here. Are you even gonna look at the minutes, or are you just gonna read the headlines?
I'll probably read the headline.
Somebody will do it for us.
Yeah, because so often you can get bogged down in the some members or most members or almost all members or a few members. Is like who is what and what is who and like who thinks what. I mean, we had 3 dissents, but then 3 dissents actually at the meeting. But then afterward, you had other Fed members say, "Well, I would have been okay." Exactly. So, I think that the Fed, and so much changes.
Yeah.
We'll get a jobs report in just a couple weeks, 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
We'll get the GDP number for the third quarter that'll come out. So there's a lot of data. You get the election, of course.
There's so much, between now and December.
So, pay attention to it because it will affect near-term movements. But then put it in context of the bigger picture and what does it actually mean. What we have seen over the last couple of weeks is that bond yields have risen across the spectrum, not just the low end,
Right.
but also the long end. We're up to over 250 now on the 30-year. So you lock your money away now, getting $2.50 for every $100 you put in. And you're making, that's so much better than $2.35.
And that's infinitely more than $0.
Indeed.
So keep that in mind sometimes. I'm interested to see it. I love how much attention people play just to the specific wording of things, kind of the vernacular there, because, when you think economists and economic experts and data analysts, you think, well, what's their word choice?
Right.
That's kind of what you think. But that's what people will be reading into. I think that's all we got for right now. We'll be back tomorrow. Political party coming up with the unit Matt Krebsbach. What's up, dude?
What up?
How are you?
Not bad. How's it going?
Good. Good week so far.
Yeah.
Happy hump day.
Yeah, happy hump day.
We're making it. We're gonna make it. Political party. We're gonna talk about what's going on. No major individual event, but I just feel like we got a lot of storylines trickling through. I don't know if you heard, but Trump said some offensive things in 2005.
Really?
Shocker. He was offensive in 2005. I don't know if anybody out there has heard this story, but some bad things were said. Real offensive. Along those lines, Trump and women. I saw a headline today on MarketWatch actually that said, if women couldn't vote, Trump would be elected president, which kind of sounds like a win-win for Donald Trump, like 1, taking power away from women, and 2, like being president. But what was interesting is it referenced some 538 data, Nate Silver's website. And so he did some polling, looked at how women are voting versus how men are voting, and it was crazy. If you had a female-only election, took those votes, applied them to the Electoral College, you're talking about Hillary Clinton winning 458 to 80, which would be...
I'm assuming that's like some crazy record.
I think that's beyond the realm of unprecedented.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if you had just men, it'd be 350 to 188 for Trump. So you've got this big disparity. A couple other stats that I think lend themselves to this. We saw some data earlier in this week. I can't remember exactly. I think it was maybe from the Wall Street Journal, but I can't remember who exactly it was from. But 49% of men say they're voting for Trump. 41%, that's 49% of married men. 41% of married women say their husband is voting for Trump. So you got like 8% of married men are in the closet about actually voting for Trump. So that was interesting. And then 7% of people claim to have lost friends over this election cycle.
Well, the thing about the closet voters, that's a thing that you brought up.
Yeah.
I don't think on podcasts before, but of people that are
Like
the polls, like exit polls, as like they actually vote for Trump, but they don't admit voting for Trump.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting any false positives. In other words, I don't think anybody's like, I'm voting for Trump, but they're not really. But I think we're getting a lot of false negatives or false, like, no responses, which will be something to keep an eye on. But this gap between men and women, it's crazy wide gap there. Does Trump have any way to actually, like, win women voters? I mean,
I don't know how he takes a significant share. He might pull a few.
maybe.
I don't
It's-
see how that's possible.
It's crazy, and that's really kind of when you start to look down demographically versus what you would expect in recent history and this current election cycle. That's really the gap. That's what's kind of making this gap in terms of the gap between her and him, which we're seeing anywhere from like 7 points to 11 points. Right now, you and I think, are pretty confident that Hillary Clinton's going to win the election. we've staked significant money on that for us.
Yeah.
So we're talking we're talking tens of dollars.
Relatively speaking.
Tens of dollars have been placed on that within the office. So we're certainly leaning that way. But the other story that I think you got coming on is WikiLeaks, which you have not, admittedly, not paid as much attention to.
You've been slowly leaking them.
I'm the WikiLeaks leaker.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff is crazy, and this is where it's really frustrating as a conservative Republican that we have a candidate in Donald Trump who not only is incapable of taking advantage of some narratives that could be built out of this, but also is incapable of like staying out of trouble himself. Because some of the stuff coming out in WikiLeaks, it's pretty crazy. I mean, you have incredible lines of media connectivity. You know, we always talk about, I guess, like the liberal media bias, which I'll be honest, even as a conservative, I always feel like has been overstated. Do you have thoughts on that?
Not too much. I think it's pretty even based on where you're looking.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think it kind of comes down to what you watch.
Yeah.
You know, if I turn on CNN, it's going to be more liberal than
Right.
Fox News
Right.
or, you know, whatever publication I might read. But so there's a lot of just kind of behind the scenes stuff where, you know, Hillary Clinton gets an email that has basically a question that was later asked to her at a town hall, like word for word from a CNN anchor who is now the head of the Democratic Party. They say it's coincidental. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. In defense of the coincidence claim, it was mostly statistical, so there were real statistics if you check the facts on that. But so you have stuff like that. You've got really negative things said about Catholics and evangelicals that you kind of feel like if Trump said these things about Catholics or evangelicals or Muslims, it would be like the dominant story for at least 24, 48 hours. But you have this released in these emails. You've got Tom DeLonge from Blink-182. Big fan of Tom DeLonge. You got him emailing John Podesta, the head of Clinton's campaign, about UFOs because they share a common interest in UFOs. You can't make this stuff up.
For real?
Like a prolonged
That's a real
email
story.
thread about UFOs back and forth. So you got that going on. You've got all kinds of stuff about Hillary dating back even to like early 2015 saying we need to prop up Donald Trump so that he wins
Yeah,
this. We need to do everything we can. We've got all kinds of kind of concerted workings to minimize Bernie Sanders, even if things aren't true as it says. You have all kinds of stuff about Bill Clinton's sexual activity even today and how they need to keep him away from the campaign. You've got...
Wasn't there stuff about Chelsea too that you're talking about?
Yeah, stuff about, you know, Chelsea trying to cover up stories related to her and Bill rather than do what's like for the best of the campaign. You have one campaign staffer that was borderline suicidal, like literally at a cliff, according to this email, and had to be talked out. Yeah, so like crazy stories, right? And all these leaks, but I feel like nobody's talking about it. So what does Trump, if you're Trump, what's your strategy? I mean, do you latch onto a few of these things and run with them? Do you continue your own narrative, or do you try to like just throw everything you can?
I think it's out of character for him not to latch on to stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
it's weird.
I don't know why he's not.
Yeah.
Unless he's waiting just for the debate or something.
I guess.
Spring him.
It's
but-
odd, like especially the things against religious groups, because I feel like that's one where when you start to look at the Catholic population, it is as large. I was reading a thing this morning. It's as large as the African American vote, the Catholic contingent, and right now,
Actually, it'll be bigger than that.
yeah, it's like a little bigger but comparable. And every year, I was reading a thing. Every year except for 2000, in the last 50 years, they have like the Catholic vote has gone with the general election. Like what they have done has been the outcome, which isn't necessarily causal, but it is like worth noting that right now they're leaning pretty strongly, like 10 to 15 points in favor of Hillary. So it just seems like that would be something where I would just be digging in as hard as I possibly could, because obviously Trump is a man of great faith and religion. So I think if I were him, I would really get my back against the wall and play that card hard.
Is that WikiLeaks stuff still coming? Like,
Yeah, that's the wild thing. So follow us on Twitter at Tusk Media LLC, but also follow WikiLeaks. Twitter.com/WikiLeaks. They're putting stuff out every day. They've done 3 dumps, and all of this is coming from John Podesta's emails, and he's the campaign manager. So they do it out, it seems like every morning at about 11. They've done 3 straight days of it. I expect we'll have more today. I don't know if they're building to a crescendo, because it doesn't seem strictly chronological. but it's hard to tell like if there's a real methodology to what's coming out when, or if they're just kind of slicing it up based on subject or whatever it may be. If they're building towards a crescendo, this thing could get real ugly because we got. Like,
You assume they would.
I would think so.
Just like
you got like
general
another
thinkings.
you probably got another 20 days in which you can really swing
Yeah.
people because you got what like 30 days until the election, not even that. So maybe you got another 15 days where you could really change some minds. But it seems like if they're building towards that, I mean, there's no telling what's going to come out.
Just go for the game winner.
I've read a lot of rumors that I don't want to quote mainly because they're inappropriate for a podcast about what might be in some of those. And if those things are true, I'm like, oh man, this like might ruin it. We'll talk about it off air. But they release them at like 11, and then they will share or retweet articles about their stuff. It's really pretty fascinating. About like every 10, 15, 20 minutes, it seems like they share like a snippet, and it's a screenshot of, hey, this is who said what about what. And it's just a screenshot of the email. And some of them are just like crazy, man. Like some of the stuff about Bill Clinton is just like not surprising, but also like, what a legend. Man.
Isn't this whole presidential debate just so absurd? Like,
It's unbelievable.
I don't remember, like, I'm pretty young, so I don't remember that many elections, but
This
this was just so absurd.
This is crazy. We had Trump put out the commercial yesterday. I think I emailed that out.
Yeah,
attacking Hillary, and then just show her like coughing and falling and like all this
What
stuff.
is this?
And about how she doesn't have the fortitude or stamina to be president. I mean, that's rich.
Yeah.
Because again, he like paired that with ISIS, which when I think ISIS, I think, well, who doesn't have pneumonia? Because we got to take this threat out. Who's not been sick recently? So you have that. You have just like the ugliness, the pettiness, and then you also have like it's almost like you have so much pettiness that you can't get to the real substantive, even dirt, let alone the issues, which are like 1,000 miles deep buried. Like, we're not touching the surface on issues, but like
Especially at that last debate, like, really, there's hardly any issues.
was
I
a
know we were
non-event.
kind of touching the debate,
yeah,
but
yeah, it's crazy. So it's like you've got all this pettiness, and it's like every day there's more pettiness. But that's what's wild, and that's crazy about the WikiLeaks thing is like she basically in the debate recognized that they were real, like she defended herself on them. And their stance, anytime they've been asked anything, is, well, we were hacked. So, well, you were hacked doesn't explain
Yeah, it
it,
doesn't
like,
change
your
anything.
husband. Like that you kind of lose that argument pretty quickly once you have that stuff out there. So it's pretty wild. The WikiLeaks, I'm like really into them. I spent like at least 2 hours reading stuff last night, straight from WikiLeaks. And yeah, it's wild. So I really am kind of excited. Can't wait to see what they put up today. Excited. Maybe we'll do a live update as I read them. I'll do one of those reaction videos as I read them, and it'll just be my face reacting. So it should be pretty awful. But I think that's it. Political party. Had to get something in here. We got a quote of the day coming up.
Hey everybody, time again for your favorite part of the show. It's the quote of the day. Today we have a quote of the day that has a special place in my heart because it's about something I love. That's beer. And it's also from a man that I love, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know if you guys know, not trying to brag or anything, but me and Andrew, we work out in the morning, so Arnold is a big role model of ours just because, we try to get that swole mentality on all the time here at the office. So, anyways, the quote of the day is, milk is for babies. When you grow up, you have to drink beer. And something that I find beautiful about this quote is it's not like when you grow up you get to drink beer. No. When you grow up, you have to drink beer. Stay lit, everybody.
Tusk Media is a subsidiary of Narwhal Capital Management. Ratings and reviews of Tusk Media content are not to be construed as endorsements of opinions, analysis, or services offered by Tusk or its parent company. The opinions and predictions shared here are our professional beliefs at the time of publication. We are not under duress from any of the corporate entities mentioned. This is not a solicitation to take any particular action. Although we are investment advisors, this information should not be considered investment, legal, or tax advice. We strive to be as impartial, insightful, and accurate as possible. We base our opinions, analysis, and calculations on information we believe to be reliable, but we cannot guarantee its accuracy. We can, however, guarantee that our opinions will sometimes be flat out wrong due to a variety of factors. Employees and clients of Narwhal Capital Management may or may not hold positions in the securities detailed and may or may not hold these positions in the future. A full list of all securities purchased, sold, or held during the 12 months preceding the date of this publication can be provided upon request. Unless otherwise noted, all data accessed via MarketWatch or the Bloomberg terminal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. A copy of Narwhal's Form ADV is available at the SEC's website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov, or from Narwhal upon written request.